Hello everyone and welcome to this week's game devlog on The Stars Our Destination, a turn-based strategy flight game. I'll level with you. After pulling 10-hour days this week, I'm burnt out. The reason which is that I've been trying to get it ready for a submission build to a couple of conventions, the deadline of which is next Sunday. So let's start with a humorous, if gravely true, quote that applies to developers. Quote, "I love deadlines. I love the whooshing noise they make as they go by. Douglas Adams." Let's get into it. When I uploaded the build last week, I didn't realize that there was a keyboard and mouse preference among developers and players. Some parts can be skimmed over within reason, but controls are not one of those, unfortunately. At the risk of sugarcoating it, this was like pulling half a tooth at a time. Making controls for controller and mouse for two different modes using two different dimensions is not the most straightforward prospect. But at the same time, nobody said I had to make the game this way. For the basic character select screen, I made everything clickable by making a clickable object script with Unity events to compensate for left, right, and middle click, along with on-trigger enter and on-trigger exit events. The player can now just left-click the pilots they want and right-click the pilots they don't want, and the cube mater will update dynamically. Not much going on here. The strategy screen, oh boy, this was a challenge. Earlier in the week, I made quick throwaway keyboard controls to get the bare minimum. Now it's mouse-based. Player can click on their pilots to move them and also right click to cancel. Player can now click on what they need, making it snippy and to the point. Flight mode was the toughest though. Unlike the other two modes, this isn't menu based and is happening in real game time. This is also where the keyboard is used most often. The player directs the mouse to direct the ship, because the ship is always moving forward. Left click to shoot, right click to barrel, and all the other functions are done with the keyboard. From the feedback I've gotten, the controls work fine. I'm just glad everything works right now, but I dread the prospect of making customizable control options eventually. I may have to make my own input manager for that one, because I never go the easy way. Moving on. One of the pieces of feedback I got was that the game was too easy. And I totally agree with this. Considering the build was a demo to just get general game feel feedback in, it makes sense. Before submission, I needed to extend it a little to get the general ideas come across, at least in terms of gameplay. So I made a basic wave system where after the player gets rid of a certain number of enemies, more will take their place, adding more chance for variety in future levels. As of now, it starts with easy wandering enemies and works its way up until it gets to the third wave, which is the final wave. I hope to get some feedback on this system as it is now. There's too much to go over, but let's go over the most apparent. The UI. In the strategy menu, the enemy stats are no longer text-based, now they're image-based and can dynamically update enemy counts and types, with some extra space for the harder encounters later on for multiple types. Also added button input windows for each menu, and no switch from controller to keyboard based on the most recent inputs, along with an improvement of pilot select, but the biggest one is in the flight mode. One common piece of feedback I got is that players couldn't tell where the enemies were in terms of their Y position. I thought of a lot of ways to mitigate this, like changing the color palette, or even the skybox. Instead, I made an indicator system that will direct the player to where the enemies are, thanks to transform.lookat, on became invisible, and on became visible functions. They turn on and off when they're supposed to, so it's clear and distinct. Originally, I wanted them to glide around the border of the screen, but that took a lot more math and time that would have been allowed. Let me know what you think. I plan on addressing last week's feedback and future feedback this week, along with other bits I want to add. The new build has been updated on the itch page, link below. That'll be it for this week. Subscribe or join the Discord server if you like what I'm doing. Let me know if you have any questions or feedback. Take care of yourselves. Have a good week.